The docking clamps hissed as the Wayfarer latched onto the station's exterior ring. Beyond the viewport, the sprawling alien trading hub of Arvex, 9 pulsed with neon lights and the shifting glow of its planetary core below. To the human crew aboard, it looked like an opportunity, a chance to secure much-needed supplies, maybe even an engine upgrade. But Captain Elias Vance knew better than to trust appearances. He turned away from the viewport and scanned his crew. 5 of them, each hardened by years of running jobs that blurred the lines between honest work and outright thievery. The ship's pilot, Nyla Torres, leaned against the bulkhead, arms crossed, her dark eyes scanning a maintenance report on a datapad. Beside her, Riker, a towering brute of a man with an artificial right arm, tightened a strap on his gauntlet. The twins, Cass and Owen, whispered to each other, likely debating which stalls would have the best contraband. The last of them, Jace, sat on an upturned crate, calibrating his sidearm with the precision of a man who expected trouble. We go in, we get the deal done, and we leave. No side hustles, no distractions, Elias said. He let his gaze settle on each of them, making sure the message landed. The station's run by the Corvani, and they don't take kindly to humans overstaying their welcome. They don't take kindly to humans, period, Jace muttered, clicking a new power cell into his gun. Elias exhaled, adjusting the fit of his worn leather jacket. They've got the parts we need, and in exchange, they'll take our credits, or so they claim. Nyla arched a brow. And if they don't? Then we walk, he said. Fast. The airlock cycled open, and the thick scent of engine coolant and exotic spices filled Elias's nostrils as he stepped onto the station's metallic floor. The trading hub was alive with movement. Various species bartering, shouting, exchanging goods beneath flashing banners advertising everything from weapon mods to black market cybernetics. Their contact was waiting near a series of dimly lit kiosks, his reptilian frame draped in shimmering red silks. Arvin Kaur, a mid-level Corvani merchant, watched them approach with slitted yellow eyes. Behind him, 2 heavily armed enforcers stood like statues, their plasma rifles held at ease but unmistakably present. Ah, the humans, Arvin hissed, lips curling back to reveal needle-like teeth. You're late. Elias didn't break stride. Traffic. Arvin made a low, chittering sound, which might have been laughter. You have credits? We do. You have the engine stabilizers. At this, the Corvani's amusement seemed to deepen. He gestured, and one of his enforcers tapped at a wrist-mounted display. A holographic schematic of the stabilizers materialized in the air between them. The parts were real, top-tier, even exactly what the Wayfarer needed. We have them, Arvin said. But your payment has changed. Elias felt the shift in the air before the words even finished leaving the alien's mouth. He kept his expression neutral. Changed how? Arvin flicked his claws. One of his guards stepped forward, producing a small, crystalline chip encased in protective glass. We no longer accept standard credits. The market moves forward, Captain Vance. We deal exclusively in crypto now. A beat of silence stretched between them, interrupted only by the distant hum of docking thrusters. Elias could feel his crew tensing beside him, waiting for his reaction. We agreed on credits, he said evenly. Arvin spread his clawed hands. And now we unagree. Cryptocurrency is the future. You humans should embrace it. Jace let out a sharp breath, shaking his head. Crypto? That's worthless outside Corvani-controlled systems. Arvin clicked his tongue. Not worthless, simply ahead of its time. Elias shifted his weight slightly, as if considering, but his mind was already working through alternatives. They needed those stabilizers. They were stranded without them, left to drift on borrowed time. But the Corvani had just made a mistake. They'd given him a reason to steal. We'll consider it, Elias said, forcing a tight smile. Give us a moment. Arvin inclined his head. Of course. I'll be here when you realize you have no other options. The crew turned away, retreating a few steps into the flow of the marketplace. As soon as they were out of earshot, Cass muttered, We're not really considering this, are we? Elias looked at them all, his voice low but firm. No, we're taking what we need. A pause. Then a slow grin spread across Riker's face. Now we're talking. Nyla exhaled, rubbing her temples. You sure about this, Cap? They've got security. We've pulled jobs under worse conditions, Elias reminded her. He glanced back at the enforcers flanking Arvin, sizing them up. Besides, we're not leaving empty-handed. We get in, we grab the parts, and we disappear before they even know what happened. Owen whistled under his breath. Just like that. Elias nodded. Just like that. And with that, the heist began. Elias moved quickly, weaving through the crowded market, his mind calculating every possible route to the storage bay where the Corvani kept high-value items under tight security. The trading hub was a labyrinth of metal corridors, flickering neon signs, and the stench of recycled air mixed with the acrid tang of fuel. If they were going to pull this off, they needed to act fast, before Arvin got suspicious, before security grew curious, before the wrong pair of eyes tracked them for too long. Jace was already ahead of him, keeping his head low as he murmured into his earpiece. I'm in the station's network. Security rotation updates every 4 minutes. We've got a small window between shifts. Elias nodded, signaling to the others. Riker, you're on distraction duty. Nyla, Cass, and Owen, you're with me. Jace, guide us through. Riker grinned, cracking his knuckles. I'll make some noise. He broke off from the group, veering toward a weapons stall where a thick-skinned Urdani vendor was arguing with a customer over the price of a plasma caster. A well-placed shove, followed by a shouted accusation, sent the two into a frenzy. The vendor roared in indignation, throwing a wrench at the customer, who immediately retaliated by flipping the entire stall over. Chaos erupted as a nearby merchant, who had nothing to do with the dispute, decided to get involved, shouting curses in a language Elias didn't recognize. Within moments, 2 Corvani guards moved in to break up the commotion, their attention fully occupied. Elias didn't waste time. He led the others down a side passage, slipping past a row of stacked cargo crates. Jace, we need a clear path. Go left, Jace instructed. Then take the maintenance hatch at the next intersection. Nyla reached it first, prying open the access panel with practiced ease. One by one, they climbed inside, moving through the dimly lit shaft. The hum of the station's power grid vibrated through the walls, a low, steady pulse beneath their feet. They emerged in a service corridor just outside the storage bay. The vault is 2 levels down, Jace whispered in their earpieces. You're close. Elias turned to Cass and Owen. Stay by the door. If things go sideways, buy us time. Cass gave a mock salute. With pleasure. Elias and Nyla pressed on, approaching the security checkpoint. A single Corvani officer stood watch, his posture relaxed, his rifle slung across his back. The Corvani didn't expect trouble here, not inside their own station. That overconfidence would be their undoing. Nyla moved first, smooth and silent. She pressed a small device against the console beside the guard, activating a localized EMP. The overhead lights flickered, and the guard barely had time to react before Elias struck, delivering a sharp blow to the side of his head. The alien crumpled soundlessly to the floor. Jace's voice crackled in their ears. Security feed is looped. You're good. They slipped inside the storage bay. Stacked shelves stretched high above them, crates labeled in alien scripts. The engine stabilizers were there, sleek, polished, worth a fortune. But they were also locked behind a containment field. Nyla knelt by the control panel. I can disable it, but we'll have to be fast. The moment it drops, station security will know. Elias drew his sidearm, checking the charge. Do it. The containment field shimmered, then collapsed. An alarm blared. Move! Elias barked. They grabbed the stabilizers, hoisting them onto their backs. Cass's voice came through the comms. Company's coming. The storage bay doors slid open, and 3 guards stormed in, weapons drawn. Owen fired first, a short burst from his rifle sending one sprawling. Nyla rolled into cover, snapping off 2 quick shots that struck the second guard square in the chest. The third hesitated, just long enough for Elias to close the distance and drive a blade between its ribs. Go, go, go! Elias shouted. They sprinted through the corridors, alarms wailing. More guards appeared at the end of the hall, opening fire. Sparks erupted as energy blasts struck the walls around them. Elias ducked, returning fire while Nyla and Owen ran ahead. Riker's voice cut through the chaos. Docking bays locked down. You need another way out. Jace's voice followed a second later. There's an auxiliary launch bay near your position. Small. Meant for emergency shuttles. Elias didn't hesitate. Reroute. They turned down a narrow corridor, emerging into a secondary hangar. A single transport shuttle sat waiting, its cockpit dark. Cass sprinted ahead, slamming a fist against the controls. Locked. Jace's voice came back. Give me 10 seconds. Elias turned, watching the far entrance. More guards were coming. Too many. He and Riker moved to cover, laying down suppressive fire. Jace. Got it. The shuttle's ramp dropped open. The crew ran, scrambling aboard as plasma fire streaked past them. The moment they were inside, Elias hit the controls, sealing the hatch. Nyla was already in the pilot's seat, hands flying across the controls. Hold on. The shuttle jerked as it lifted from the hangar floor. The external doors weren't open yet. Jace, override launch protocols. Elias shouted. Working on it. The Corvani guards weren't giving up. They brought in heavy weapons, firing at the shuttle's reinforced hull. The impact rocked the cabin. Jace! The bay doors groaned, then yawned open. Nyla wasted no time. She slammed the throttle forward, and the shuttle shot out into space. Alarms flared again, this time from the station's defense grid. They're scrambling fighters, Nyla reported, eyes locked on the console. And we're flying a brick. Elias gritted his teeth. Get us back to the Wayfarer. The shuttle rattled violently as the Corvani fighters closed in. Bright flashes of plasma fire streaked past. Jace's voice came through. You've got a minute before they catch you. That's a problem, Nyla shot back. Because I need to. Elias looked out the viewport. The Wayfarer was still locked to the station, its engines cold. Owen, get the weapons online the moment we dock, Elias ordered. The shuttle's hull shuddered as another shot clipped them. Nyla gripped the controls, jaw tight. Hold together, you piece of. A blast rocked the ship. Systems flickered. They were running out of time. The shuttle lurched as another blast glanced off its hull, sending a cascade of warning lights flickering across the console. Nyla wrestled with the controls, jaw tight, knuckles white against the worn grips. The Corvani fighters were closing fast, their sleek, needle-like frames maneuvering effortlessly through the vacuum, banking into position for another attack run. The shuttle was not built for this. It was a clunky, underpowered transport, barely holding together under the relentless assault. Elias braced himself against the bulkhead, his mind racing. The Wayfarer was still docked, its engines cold, its defenses down. If they didn't make it back in time, the Corvani would tear them apart before they even reached the airlock. Owen, weapons ready? He barked into the comms. Almost. Owen's voice crackled through. But unless you want to fight them off with harsh language, I need another 30 seconds. They didn't have 30 seconds. Elias turned back to Nyla. Give me everything this thing's got. She gritted her teeth. It's already at the limit. He grabbed onto the co-pilot's chair, eyes locked on the fast-approaching fighters. Push it past. Nyla didn't argue. With a muttered curse, she slammed the throttle forward. The shuttle groaned in protest, its aging engines flaring hotter than they were ever meant to burn. The sudden burst of speed sent them hurtling toward the Wayfarer, the station and its defensive grid shrinking behind them. But the fighters were faster. Another volley of plasma fire streaked past, one shot searing against the rear thrusters. The ship bucked hard, and for a heart-stopping moment, Elias thought they'd lost power entirely. Hold together, Nyla growled, hands flying across the controls. Elias watched the readouts with grim determination. Their trajectory was barely holding, their hull integrity was at 60%, and the Corvani weren't letting up. A warning klaxon screamed as another ship dropped into real space ahead of them. A blockade ship, its weapon systems already locking on. Damn it! Jace's voice crackled through the comms. They've got an interdictor online. We're boxed in. Elias clenched his jaw. They were running out of time, running out of space, running out of options. Then an idea sparked. He turned sharply toward Nyla. Cut all thrust. She twisted to face him, disbelief flashing across her face. You want me to what? Now, he ordered. Kill all power except life support. For half a second, Nyla hesitated. Then she flipped the switches. The shuttle went dark. The hum of the engines died. The ship tumbled, silent and dead, into the void. The Corvani fighters hesitated, their targeting systems thrown off by the sudden loss of movement. To them, the human shuttle had just become another piece of drifting debris. It was a trick as old as spaceflight itself. Play dead and hope the predators moved on. Elias held his breath. Through the viewport, he could see the blockade ship adjusting its position, scanning, waiting. Then, after a long, agonizing moment, the fighters veered off. The blockade ship remained. Come on, Elias muttered under his breath. Take the bait. The ship lingered, its massive frame looming against the backdrop of the station. For a moment, Elias thought it had worked. Then a new alarm sounded, a targeting lock. They're not buying it, Nyla murmured. Elias made his decision in an instant. Reignite engines. Full burn. Nyla didn't need to be told twice. The shuttle roared back to life, rocketing forward just as the blockade ship opened fire. A blast of plasma tore through the space where they'd been mere seconds before, but they were already gone, cutting hard toward the Wayfarer. Riker, open the damn bay doors, Elias shouted into the comms. The docking bay came into view, the doors already sliding open as the Wayfarer systems roared to life. Owen must have finished booting up the ship's weapons, because a burst of retaliatory fire lanced out toward the approaching blockade ship, forcing it to veer off course. Nyla guided the shuttle in, skidding hard into the docking clamps. The moment they made contact, Elias was already unstrapping, sprinting for the hatch. The crew followed, weapons ready. The airlock cycled open and they rushed inside. Riker was already at the controls. We need to leave. Now. Elias didn't waste time. Punch it. The Wayfarer shuddered as its engines flared to life. The ship ripped free of the docking bay, twisting hard as the blockade ship tried to compensate. Fighters closed in again, their weapons heating, but the Wayfarer had something the shuttle didn't: firepower. Owen, Elias called. On it, Owen replied, fingers flying over the weapons console. The ship's twin cannons flared, sending a spread of energy rounds into the closest fighter. The ship erupted in a brief, brilliant explosion, sending debris scattering through space. The remaining fighters adjusted their approach, but the Wayfarer was already moving. Nyla pulled them into a steep climb, engines screaming as she pushed them to their absolute limits. The blockade ship loomed ahead, weapons still locking on. Jace, get us coordinates for a jump, Elias shouted. Jace was already ahead of him, typing furiously. Plotting. Almost there. Elias turned back to the viewport. The blockade ship fired. The plasma shot streaked toward them. Then space twisted. The Wayfarer surged into the jump corridor, leaving the Corvani station, and its angry inhabitants, far behind. For a long moment, the only sound was the hum of the ship, the steady rhythm of the engines stabilizing into faster-than-light travel. Elias let out a slow breath, rolling his shoulders. He glanced at his crew, sweaty, breathing hard, but alive. Owen let out a low whistle. Well, that was fun, Cass scoffed. We nearly died. But we didn't, Riker said, grinning. Jace leaned back, rubbing his face. They're going to come after us. Let them, Elias said. He turned, looking at the cargo hold, where the stolen engine stabilizers sat, gleaming under the ship's dim lights. We got what we came for,